Santa Cruz, California is renowned for its secure, laid-back beach atmosphere. Boasting white sandy beaches and a charming boardwalk, it remains a featured destination for tourists. It was the peak of summer season in 2015. The city was abuzz with holidaymakers, while residential neighbourhoods were filled with children off school for the holidays. Then on the 25th of July, everything changed, as the entire city's focus shifted to the search for a missing girl. It was a balmy summer afternoon in Santa Cruz, California, on the 25th of July 2015. The schools had closed their doors for summer break, and 8-year-old Maddy Middleton was at home with her mother, Laura Jordan. Maddy and her mother lived at the Tannery Arts Centre, a multicultural arts campus set on 8 acres. It was formerly used as a leather tannery, which lent its current name. The Tannery stands as a public-private non-profit initiative boasting 100 affordable loft apartments designated for low-income artists and their families. Alongside the residential units, the campus housed a cafe, a dance studio, and an art studio. It functioned not only as a living space, but as a vibrant hub for like-minded individuals to congregate and foster a sense of community. Despite its emphasis on artistic endeavours, the Tannery received federal funding and was subject to fair housing laws. This meant that its leaders couldn't discriminate against non-artists when choosing tenants, which resulted in a diverse tenant mix. Positioned just off the bustling Cabrillo Highway, the Tannery was surrounded by numerous businesses and a significant construction project, ensuring a constant hum of activity in the vicinity. Nevertheless, this dynamic atmosphere suited Laura and Maddy, who had made the Tannery their home for the past 6 years. Laura was a single mother, and Maddy saw her father, Michael, once or twice a week. The Tannery accommodated approximately 350 residents, fostering a tight-knit community where nearly everyone was familiar with one another. One resident, Jeffrey Nelson, encapsulated the spirit of the place, commenting, "It's a great community because it's a bit unusual. You share the joys of people, their children growing up, their art shows, their recitals, but you also share their sorrows." The courtyard was a hub of activity and served as a popular hangout for the children living in the apartments. On any given day, a group of kids could be seen riding past on their scooters or bikes or playing tag. Despite the sense of security provided by the surveillance cameras that monitored the premises, the courtyard remained a public space, and it was frequently used as a shortcut by people who didn't live there. All of the children, including Maddy, were sternly instructed never to engage with strangers. This was a precautionary measure already ingrained into Maddy's consciousness. She was well aware of the concept of stranger danger. At just 8 years old, Maddy had been enjoying her summer off school. She loved to swim and dance, and she had a soft spot for animals. She had managed to sweet-talk her mother into getting a black and white terrier chihuahua that she named Lucy. When they went to the shelter to look at the dogs, Maddy firmly said to her mother, "I'm not leaving here without a dog." Lucy assumed the role of Maddy's guardian, instinctively growling whenever anyone with negative energy came too close for comfort. In just a month's time, Maddy was starting the 4th grade at the Liga Elementary School. But before then, she still had 4 weeks of summer left, and she wanted to spend most of her time outdoors with her friends. Her mother Laura said of her, "She likes to skate around. She loves to chase the boys. She loves playing with the littlest pet shop toys, painting them and modifying them, making movies of them." While Laura allowed her daughter to play outside, she had strictly instructed her to limit her play to the front of the building, forbidding her from venturing out to the back. Concerned for Maddy's safety, her mother frequently emphasised the potential dangers associated with that specific area, referring to it as Heroin Highway. Just across the road from the Tannery Arts Centre was the city's Homeless Service Centre. Many of the people who used the Homeless Services Centre were plagued by drug addiction issues. The back of the Tannery Arts Centre was adjacent to the river, which was dubbed the Fairy Glen by local children, and hidden away from view by scattered trees. It had transformed into a secluded spot where people took drugs and drank, shielded from public view. It was dark, and not the kind of place where any child should be playing. As one neighbour, Wendy Burr, said, "I would never walk around this path alone. Around the Tannery, it's certainly not the nicest part of town." Maddy's mother had repeatedly cautioned her to avoid that area altogether, insisting that she stay within sight in the front of the building. That afternoon, Maddy had just received a brand new scooter, and she wanted to test it out. Outside, she whizzed back and forth just below the window of her apartment, ensuring her mother's watchful eye remained within reach. Due to the close-knit feel of the apartment complex at the Tannery, Maddy had made a bunch of friends with the other children that lived there. She had a scheduled playdate with one of her friends, and the scooter was keeping her preoccupied as she waited for this friend to finish a board game with her mother before she could come out and play. As evening approached at about 6 p.m, Laura peered outside the window only to find her daughter absent from sight. Initially unfazed, Laura assumed that Maddy and her friend had decided to play inside her apartment. With dinner time looming closer, Laura ventured over to the friend's apartment. She was surprised to see Maddy's friend at home, but Maddy wasn't there. The friend informed Laura that when she finished playing the board game with her mother and went outside to meet Maddy, she wasn't there. Laura considered the possibility that Maddy had grown impatient waiting for her friend and may have sought out another friend's company. She checked with all of Maddy's friends at the Tannery, but none of them had seen her. As a sinking feeling settled in the pit of her stomach, Laura embarked on a frantic search throughout the Tannery, repeatedly calling out Maddy's name. However, Maddy was nowhere to be found, and neither was her brand new scooter. Just after 6 p.m, Laura called police and reported her daughter missing. In the meantime, as the police arrived, a collective effort among concerned residents at the Tannery was already underway, with other residents assisting Laura in the desperate search for her daughter. Providing detectives with a detailed description of Maddy, Laura recounted her movements leading up to her disappearance. The wooded area behind the complex was meticulously combed for any trace of Maddy. There was an immediate fear that she may have wandered into harm's way, possibly encountering somebody with sinister intentions near the river. Despite the presence of litter, discarded beer cans and syringes littering the ground alongside the river in the forest, there remained no sight of Maddy or her scooter. After speaking with Laura, detectives immediately began in their search for the little girl. Exhausting all efforts within the 8-acre of the Tannery yielded no leads, prompting the detectives to begin door-to-door inquiries. They interviewed every single resident within the Tannery, extending their inquiries to include individuals at the nearby homeless resource centre situated across the road. Meanwhile, missing child posters were printed out and distributed. These described Maddy as standing at 4 feet tall and weighing 48 pounds. Her hair was long and blondish brown, and she had dark eyes. As darkness descended on Santa Cruz, the search was called off for the night, but a handful of people, including Laura, searched throughout the night. By the break of dawn the subsequent morning, Maddy's disappearance had garnered widespread attention across social media and newspapers throughout the state. Prompted by the urgent call to action, hunters within the community rallied to participate in the quest to locate her. A notable display of solidarity emerged from the homeless community, as many volunteered their time contributing to the search efforts. While some distributed flyers and affixed them to lampposts, others combed through the city. They meticulously inspected every possible nook and cranny where a child might seek refuge or become inadvertently concealed. Kirby Scuddery, a Tannery resident, commented to the Alameda Times-Star, "None of us have slept. We've been at this since 5 o'clock last night." Linda Cover, another resident, told the same newspaper, "We're hoping that everyone can help us look for Maddy. This is our child. She lives here." The police have been really active. We're grateful for that. We really want, as a community, to get the word out. Other neighbours spoke with the media that had gathered outside the apartment complex.
This wonderful kid, we would have heard her. She's I don't get this. Nobody gets this. We would have heard. She was just right here.
All feeling a little helpless at this point. We've been checked all the tents and homeless camps. A lot of us have been up all night. We've gone as far as Paradise Park.
In their search for Maddy, detectives scanned through all surveillance footage that was available from near the Tannery. One camera had captured her by the mailboxes at 5:05 p.m. These mailboxes were located by the living spaces near the trails by the San Lorenzo River. Maddy could be seen riding her white scooter. She was wearing a purple knee-length dress with black leggings and a black baseball-style helmet. Her dark hair was pulled to the side in a braid. From here, however, Maddy disappeared from sight. Just the day after Maddy was reported missing, the FBI was called in to assist in the search. Detectives were keen to refer to the disappearance as a missing persons case instead of a kidnapping. Police spokeswoman Joyce Blank stated,
"We're not calling this a kidnapping. We're still early on in our investigation. What we're calling it this is we're looking for a lost child."
In addition to the FBI, several other groups were partaking in the search, including the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue Team, as well as a specialised canine rescue team. Since Maddy's disappearance hadn't been classified as a kidnapping, an Amber Alert couldn't be issued. As detectives in the FBI continued searching through surveillance footage of the area, the community continued searching on foot. Among the searchers were members of Take Back Santa Cruz, a stand-up paddleboarding group from Watsonville. They took to the river, keeping an eye out for any clue that could indicate what happened to Maddy, possibly a purple dress or a child-sized helmet. As the search efforts grew, Laura pleaded for her daughter's safe return to reporters outside of police headquarters. The concern for her daughter was palpable, as she said through tears. "I can't explain how difficult this is." While she was keeping an open mind, her mother was a little less optimistic. She commented in the media that she feared that Maddy had been abducted. That evening, Maddy's father, Michael, arrived at the Tannery with 3 friends to help out in the search for his daughter. With no trace of Maddy in sight, detectives proceeded to conduct an additional search of the apartment complex that night. Dividing into teams, they commenced their exploration. Just before 8 p.m, one of the officers began searching a recycling bin situated in the ground level garage. The bins in the garage had been searched before, but it had been more of a cursory inspection. However, this time the officer began to sift through the top layer of garbage. It was then that the officer's sense of dread intensified upon finding a conspicuously heavy, large black plastic bag. Tentatively, he punctured the bag, and a small hand came into view. He ripped open the bag, revealing Maddy's contorted form within. Her neck was stained red with blood, which had cascaded down her purple dress.
Approximately 7:55 p.m., a Santa Cruz police detective conducted a secondary and more thorough canvass of the complex, which included the search of a recycle bin located in an enclosure on the first floor parking structure at the Tannery Arts Center complex. Maddy's body was located within that recycle bin. I will merely say that Maddy's body was concealed in a recycle bin in a way that was not obvious or readily apparent.
Swiftly, the officer summoned backup to safeguard the crime scene and protect the residents from potential contamination. Nearby, however, there was a teenage boy silently observing the unfolding scene. Much like Maddy, 15-year-old Adrian Jerry Gonzalez was a familiar face at the Tannery. Adrian Gonzalez's upbringing was marred by a shadow of divorce, frequent financial instability, and precarious housing arrangements. His mother, Reggie Factor, was originally from the Philippines, and she had a string of violent and abusive partners before she met Abraham Gonzalez, who was originally from Mexico. The couple welcomed their son, Adrian, into the world in October 1999, but Abraham wasn't in his son's life. In June 2001, when Adrian was barely 2 years old, Abraham was arrested on charges of felony assault with a deadly weapon and misdemeanor battery within a relationship. While he was convicted of the latter, he received a 3-year probation sentence. Life as a single mother proved challenging for Reggie, leading them to rely on food stamps as she navigated through periods of unemployment and frequent changes in their living situation. Before Adrian reached the age of 9, he and his mother had relocated 36 times. Around 2008, Reggie secured a job at a Dollar Tree, where she worked diligently, stocking shelves, managing deliveries, and maintaining restroom cleanliness. Initially, the stability of employment brought Reggie a sense of joy, as she sought to support herself and her son. However, this fleeting contentment was soon overshadowed. Her boss started making sexual advances at her, and sexually assaulted her after promising she would get preferential treatment. Reggie subsequently filed a lawsuit for sexual harassment. However, following her termination from the Dollar Tree, she and Adrian found themselves without a stable residence. They relied on the hospitality of friends and temporarily sought refuge at the Homeless Services Centre on Coral Street. When the sexual harassment lawsuit settled in May of 2013, Reggie received an undisclosed sum. With this newfound stability, Reggie and Adrian moved into the Tannery. While they weren't artists like the majority of the other residents, Adrian displayed a keen interest in various art forms practiced at the Tannery. He could often be spotted outside on his skateboard, doing yo-yo tricks or chatting with the other children who lived at the complex. Alongside his studies at Santa Cruz High, he dedicated his time to after-school ceramics classes. He enjoyed listening to jazz music, playing the piano, and reading the Twilight series. He also actively contributed to the artist's studio within the apartment complex and had even volunteered as a camp counsellor. One neighbour recollected of him.
He's just like a normal kid. Like, he hangs out on the levee with other normal kids and plays with his yo-yo all day long. Like, I haven't... he doesn't really strike any chords as being a baby killer.
As Maddy's body was carefully removed from the recycling bin, the officers began to become suspicious of Adrian Gonzalez. Although they had tried to obscure his view from the garage, he seemed overly interested in what they were doing. The fact that he had been standing watching as Maddy's body was discovered by a solitary officer struck them as strange. It was almost as though he knew where Maddy's body was and wanted to witness her being discovered by the officer. As Maddy's body was transported to the medical examiner's office, the officers approached Adrian and asked him some questions. He appeared to be overly anxious and jittery. He blurted out that he didn't kill Maddy, which raised their suspicions even further. Detectives decided they needed to interview Adrian to figure out if he knew more. He was arrested at the apartment complex and brought into the police headquarters. Over at the medical examiner's office, Maddy's autopsy showed that she had been raped, strangled, and stabbed 3 times in the neck. However, her cause of death was positional asphyxia, combined with loss of blood. Positional asphyxia occurs when a person's position interferes with their ability to breathe. This meant that Maddy was still alive when her body was folded in half and crammed into the plastic bag and recycling bin. The arrest of Adrian Gonzalez stunned the area, in particular residents at the Tannery who knew both him and Maddy. Lisa Silas, who lived at the complex, expressed her shock to a local newspaper, stating, "In my opinion, it must be some sort of accident. The boy is a good boy. Everyone has known him a long time. My son considers him one of his best friends." Some speculated that detectives had arrested the wrong person, that Adrian was just an innocent bystander who was curious to see what was going on. However, the perception as Adrian, as a mild-mannered boy, quickly began to crumble. While he was being interrogated, his social media posts surfaced in the media. These gradually unravelled a troubled and depressed side to his character, as described by child psychologists. In one of the social media posts, he stood solitary in an open field, accompanied by the caption, "In solitude, you're the only one I want beside me." Another entry revealed his struggles with crippling anxiety. The final post, shared on the day that Maddy's body was discovered, featured a video of Adrian performing Mad World by the band Tears for Fears. It was captioned with the lyrics, "The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had." The darker facet of Adrian was not entirely unfamiliar to some of his acquaintances. Katie Carroll, who had been friends with him since their middle school days, recounted to the Alameda Times-Star that he would often phone her late at night and tell her he was going to jump from his apartment building. She revealed that she had encouraged him to seek professional help, but eventually distanced herself from the friendship when the burden became overwhelming. Katie also recalled that Adrian had developed a bit of an obsession with her and another friend who had similarly distanced themselves from him. Despite this, however, Katie said that she never felt threatened by Adrian. There were some other indications that something may have been amiss with Adrian. As soon as Maddy was reported missing, Adrian had displayed an obsessive interest in monitoring the ongoing search efforts. He persistently hounded fellow residents of the Tannery, bombarding them with inquiries regarding the search. One resident, Saturo Garcia, recalled how he had practically had to shoo Adrian away.
They kept asking any updates, and I was like, we're not getting anywhere, I don't know. Every time I spoke to you guys or the police or the FBI, you were like, any updates? And I was like, dude, why do you keep asking me? You're the only one asking me and asking my brother and asking everybody.
Over in the interrogation room, Adrian took a seat in front of the two detectives. Contrary to their expectations of coaxing information out of him, Adrian immediately told them that he had killed Maddy. Providing a backdrop to his relationship with Maddy, he informed detectives that they had both been acquainted for some time. Maddy had been present at some of his birthday parties, and she had also participated in the Tannery summer art camp while Adrian served as an assistant. He said that on the day of the murder he had been home alone, as he was most days. He went outside and began playing with his yo-yo when he spotted Maddy. She was whizzing up and down in the courtyard on her brand new scooter. Most importantly, she was alone. According to Adrian's statement, he called Maddy over, telling her that he had some ice cream inside the apartment. Maddy enthusiastically followed Adrian inside. However, the moment her back turned and the door closed, Adrian turned on her. He grabbed her from behind and placed his hands around her neck and began to squeeze. After a couple of moments, Maddy fell unconscious. According to Adrian, he thought that she was dead, and it made him aroused. He sexually assaulted her before stuffing her into a trash bag. However, Maddy wasn't dead. She stirred back to consciousness and began to groan and cry from inside the trash bag. To muffle the sounds, Adrian turned on some music and grabbed a knife from the kitchen. He returned to Maddy and stabbed her 3 times in the neck. Folding her body into a jackknife position, he confined her within the kitchen trash can. However, Maddy was still alive. She ultimately died of positional asphyxiation, but she had been alive all throughout the attack. According to Adrian, it took around 30 minutes from the moment that Maddy walked in the door to the moment he stuffed her into the trash can. After disposing of Maddy's body in the recycling bin in the garage, Adrian retreated to the apartment and began cleaning up. He washed the knife with hydrogen peroxide and then put it back in the drawer. Adrian's meticulous efforts in eradicating any traces of murder were evident when crime scene investigators combed through the apartment but only discovered a single droplet of blood. When Adrian was asked why he killed Maddy, he said that he did it for attention.
There was a 15-year-old male juvenile who resides in an apartment on the property upstairs from the location where Maddy's body was found, and he was nearby when Maddy was located. He was subsequently taken into custody, where he was brought back to the Santa Cruz Police Department and interviewed. Investigators from the Santa Cruz Police Department interviewed this individual into the early morning hours this morning, and he was subsequently arrested for the murder of Maddy Middleton. Additionally, investigators have located evidence that links the suspect to this horrific crime. It appears that she was lured to the suspect's apartment willingly. Additionally, we've determined that Maddy was murdered inside of the suspect's apartment.
Following Adrian's arrest, it was announced the next day that he would be tried as an adult for the charge of murder. District Attorney Jeffrey Russell said he made the decision based on the brutal nature of the crime. This meant that if Adrian was found guilty, he would potentially face a sentence of life in prison. During his court appearance, Adrian maintained a solemn demeanour, clad in a green t-shirt issued for juveniles and khaki pants. He faced a multitude of severe charges, including murder with the added accusation of lying in wait, kidnapping, forcible rape, lewd acts with a child under 14 and rape by instrument. All of these charges were classified as felonies. The courtroom was packed with a dozen TV cameras and reporters, and Judge Timothy Volkman scheduled Adrian to return to court on the 21st of September to establish a preliminary hearing date. Assigned to Adrian as his legal representative was public defender Larry Bigham, who expressed outside the courtroom, "This case is extremely tragic and devastating to two families, and to many families in the Tannery arts community, and many more people in this county and beyond." On the same day, flags across Santa Cruz were lowered to half-staff in honour of Maddy. Handwritten signs had emerged on storefronts and lampposts bearing the words, "Remember Maddy," and "We love you, Maddy." While the majority of the community were content with Adrian being charged as an adult, not everybody shared the sentiment. Sue Bernal, an attorney with the Youth Law Centre, said that Adrian was too young to understand what he was accused of doing. Barry Crisberg, a University of California criminologist, agreed, stating, "There is no way on earth that a 15-year-old could have fully comprehended what he was doing. He might be able to recount the events that resulted, but the notion that he comprehended the consequences of his actions flies in the face of all the science that we know." Maddy's family, on the other hand, found solace in the fact that Adrian was being charged as an adult, yet they still extended their sympathies to his family. At a memorial for Maddy on the 3rd of August, Laura embraced Adrian's mother, Reggie, who had come to pay her respects. Laura harboured no animosity towards Reggie, feeling that they were forever linked by the tragedy. Speaking to the Associated Press, Laura remarked, "I just love her, and we both lost our children that day. That's the tragic truth. I don't fault her." On the 21st of September, Adrian pleaded not guilty to the kidnap and murder of Maddy. Outside of court, Maddy's father, Michael, spoke publicly for the first time. He was surrounded by supporters as he expressed, "Justice will happen regardless of what I think. It's not up to me. I think Maddy would want it this way, would want for me to not have any hatred or anger." He said that he had forgiven Adrian for what he had done. The next month, Laura announced that she was hoping to start a tradition named Maddy's Day on the 5th of October. It would have been Maddy's 9th birthday. Laura asked for the community to come together at Harvey West Park in Santa Cruz to remember her daughter. She had arranged for jump houses, a petting zoo, face painting, ice cream and food trucks. Laura said that the purpose would be twofold: to remember Maddy and to help children deal with loss. She commented in the media, "That's a big emotion for a child to deal with. I can't imagine. If it had been the other way around, if Maddy's best friend had been murdered, how I as a parent would support Maddy. This is going to be all about fun and support for the kids. I want this to be like she's still with us, and want us all to be happy." Adrian's trial was scheduled for the 21st of February 2017 after he waived his right to a preliminary hearing. In January of that year, however, the murder trial was upended by a new law. Proposition 57 had passed, which nullified direct file cases such as Adrian's and returned the cases to juvenile courts. This proposition directed juvenile court judges to determine whether children could be tried as adults, not prosecutors. It was also retroactive, meaning that juveniles charged as adults before the new law came in would be transferred back to juvenile court. The law deeply upset Maddy's family, and her grandfather, Bruce Jordan, commented to the Mercury News, I see this exercise as having a great potential to create havoc in the judicial system throughout the state, not just in this individual case here in Santa Cruz. As the case was pushed back, Maddy's family launched a non-profit that would protect children from predatory violence. Maddy Child Angel of Santa Cruz received non-profit status on the 21st of April. Her grandfather, Dan Middleton, explained the motivation behind setting up the non-profit. It was established to give meaning to Maddy Middleton's death. The group's mission is to help prevent child abduction, abuse and violence by predators known by the potential victim. The non-profit gave Maddy's family some focus and hope as they waited for Adrian to stand trial. Dan said that they wanted to protect children against child predators and do something that could prevent what happened to Maddy happening to another child. In August, a transfer hearing was scheduled to determine whether Adrian would be tried as a juvenile or adult. Although resembling a trial, the transfer hearing entailed a comprehensive evaluation of the defendant's character, scrutinising the potential for rehabilitation within the juvenile detention programs. Adrian's defence attorney Larry Bigham explained, "This hearing is not whether the crime is fit for juvenile court, but whether the minor is fit, or more accurately, is amenable to the treatment and rehabilitation of the juvenile court." The judge's assessment extended beyond the specifics of the crime, delving into Adrian's broader context, including his familial background, as well as his mental and emotional development. Before the hearing began, Maddy's grandfather, Dan, created an online petition asking the judge to try Adrian as an adult. On the petition he had written, "Her almost 16-year-old acquaintance and neighbour, Adrian Gonzalez, lured Maddy to his apartment by offering her ice cream. It is alleged that he then attacked her from behind, tied her up, beat her, raped and stabbed her to death before dumping and hiding her body in the recycling bin in the parking garage downstairs." The petition reached over 6,000 signatures before the hearing began on the 23rd of August. Adrian arrived in court and sat alongside his defence team. It was the first time that he had been publicly seen for over a year, and he looked remarkably different with a slimmer face. Assistant District Attorney Rafael Vasquez described Adrian's composure as the search for Maddy unfolded, telling the judge that he was calm, poised, friendly, helpful and sincere while playing with his yo-yo around the Tannery property, high-fiving friends, talking to residents, police officers and FBI agents. He said that the ability to keep his composure was among the reasons that Adrian should be tried as an adult. He also described the premeditated nature of the murder and said that Adrian had gone to great lengths in an effort to clean up the crime scene. Only a small speck of blood was discovered in the trash. He stated to the judge, "The evidence in this case does not support the contention that this was some kind of ill-considered, vague notion to do something terrible. This was something that was not planned." It was the prosecution's argument that Adrian had psychosexual disorders, which prompted him to commit the murder. He said that such disorders are complex and would take more time than juvenile courts could address. Adrian's defence attorney, Larry Bigham, on the other hand, said that his childhood trauma, neglect and psychological underdevelopment made him a suitable candidate for reform. He told the judge that his client had made great improvements since his arrest, including earning his high school diploma and receiving treatment for the first time in his life. Speaking of Adrian, he said, "The past 2 years, Adrian has demonstrated his resiliency and his capacity for change." He revealed that Adrian had been diagnosed with autism and attention deficit disorder, and said that he had been the victim of an abusive and transient childhood, which included periods of living in a car. In regard to autism, defence attorney Bigham said that Adrian was obsessed with narrow interests, such as denim jeans, looms and Pokemon, and said that he exhibited repetitive behaviour. Kathy Johnson, the lead investigator on the case, had been tasked with compiling Adrian's social history. She told the judge that Adrian had battled depression, but liked to talk one-on-one with adults, play piano and jazz, oil paint and make ceramics. Johnson revealed that Adrian had always sought the attention that was lacking during his formative years. She noted his tendency to internalize his emotions, feeling unable to confide in his mother. She testified, he learned very early he wasn't able to turn to his mother. While a doctor from Stanford University testified that it was his belief that Adrian had autism, Bryna Siegel, executive director of the Autism Center of Northern California, raised doubts. He said that being socially awkward and being autistic were two very different things. Despite the defense attorney's assertion of Adrian's progress since his arrest, the hearing uncovered the troubling pattern of daily altercations with peers, including 3 physical fights. Jennifer Boasting reported that the staff at the Santa Cruz County Juvenile Hall described Adrian as sophisticated yet untitled, citing an instance where he displayed disrespect and hostility towards a teacher. According to Boasting, Adrian's charges made him a target in the juvenile hall, but said that he had the capability of identifying vulnerable staff members and manipulating them. The testimony during the hearing portrayed 2 strikingly different pictures of Adrian. One was a sexually deviant, manipulative killer who could not be rehabilitated. The other was a neglected and depressed boy who would benefit with therapy and treatment. During closing arguments, the prosecutor said that Adrian saying he had become sexually aroused after he believed that Maddy was dead was particularly alarming. He said that this showed that Adrian was beyond the reach of rehabilitation. He firmly warned the judge, "We're talking about paedophilia. We're talking about necrophilia. We're talking about lifelong disorders. We can't risk creating a situation where it's going to be like a revolving door." Defense attorney Bigham, on the other hand, argued that because of Adrian's young age, he was a prime candidate for rehabilitation. He compared his developing brain to a Ferrari engine without a brake system, and said that horrible does not equal incorrigible. Judge John Salazar had a week to make its decision on whether Adrian would be facing trial as an adult or a juvenile. He was tasked with weighing up the facts of the case using factors codified by state law. These included the gravity and sophistication of the crime, any mitigating circumstances, the likelihood of rehabilitation, and Adrian's track record of both delinquency and reform. On the 24th of October, the judge announced that Adrian Gonzalez was going to be tried as an adult. If convicted, he would be spending the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. His decision prompted a mixture of cheers and cries from the attendees, comprising of Maddy's loved ones. The bailiff swiftly intervened, calling for silence within the charged courtroom. Judge Salazar had found that Adrian didn't suit the juvenile system for 3 legal elements. He was sophisticated, as well as the gravity and circumstances of Maddy's murder. Defense attorney Bigham expressed his disappointment with the decision outside of court, telling the media, "I am disappointed, but I'm not surprised. I think the ruling reflects many people's understandable anger about the crime. I believe the ruling is contrary to the evidence and the new law, and it's also counterproductive." Despite the initial delay to allow the defence more time in preparation, the case encountered a further setback in August of 2018. The California State Assembly and Senate passed Senate Bill 1391, presenting a significant obstacle. The newly passed bill specifically prohibited the transfer of 14 or 15-year-old minors accused of violent crimes to adult court. If the legislation were to be enacted, it would mandate that defendants of this age undergo rehabilitation programs within the juvenile system. Their confinement would continue until the age of 25, with the provision for district attorneys to file for extensions every 2 years, even for juveniles accused of serious crimes, such as murder. Maddy's family strongly opposed the bill and announced that they were seeking a meeting with Governor Brown to urge a veto. They expressed concerns that if Senate Bill 1391 became law, Adrian could potentially be released from custody much sooner than they had anticipated. Her grandfather, Bruce, said to the Mercury News, "As far as I'm concerned, the women in Santa Cruz and the state are in danger by that bill." Judge Salazar ruled that despite the new bill, Adrian's case would not be transferred to juvenile court. He said that Senate Bill 1391 was unconstitutional because it went too far. He further disputed the idea that all 14 and 15-year-olds could be rehabilitated through their mid-20s, when they could be released unless requests for extensions were made. He commented, "The voting public never agreed to allow extremely violent and dangerous individuals to be returned to the general public, without first being rehabilitated, and in fact the public was promised protection from these individuals." However, Judge Salazar had no say in the matter. After a lot of legal back and forth, in February of 2021, the California Supreme Court announced that children younger than 16 could no longer be charged as adults. This decision meant that Adrian's case would be transferred to juvenile court. If he were convicted on all of his charges, including murder, kidnapping, sexual penetration and intercourse with a minor, he could still be eligible for release when he turned 25. That was just 4 years away. On the 14th of April 2021, Adrian Gonzalez appeared in court where his case was formally transferred back to juvenile court. Judge Salazar said that he unfortunately had no other choice. Adrian was asked to enter his plea, and he surprised the courtroom when he pleaded guilty to all of the charges against him. He returned to court the next week to be sentenced. Adrian Gonzalez received the maximum sentence that was allowed by law, which was essentially 4 years. Now at 21 years old, he could be eligible for release the day he turns 25. Outside of court, District Attorney Jeffrey Rosell shared his disappointment, stating, "This is a disappointing, sad, and tragic outcome." At the time of Maddy Middleton's murder, Adrian Gonzalez was just 3 months shy of his 16th birthday. Those 3 months meant that Adrian received a sentence that could be as brief as 4 years, as opposed to a life sentence. The case highlighted the reality that the criminal justice system does not operate under a universally applicable framework, and that one size certainly does not fit all. Well, besties, that is it for this episode of Morbidology. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to my newest supporters up on Patreon, Blueberry Shake, Megan and Christian. If you'd like to join Morbidology on Patreon, the link is in the show notes. Or alternatively, you can just search on desktop or on the app for Morbidology. In exchange for your support on there, I upload bonus episodes of Morbidology Plus that aren't on the regular podcast feeds. I also upload ad-free and early release episodes, behind the scenes which includes bonus audio, video and case files, and I also send out a handwritten thank you card along with some cool merch. Remember to check us out at morbidology.com for more information about this episode and to read some true crime articles. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe and have an amazing week.